Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a multifaceted and accomplished professional from New Jersey, USA, Mr. Calvin Schwartz. Calvin, welcome to the show.
Uh, I have been looking forward to this for a long time for about 50 different reasons. Notwithstanding that you and I have some elemental commonality
Mhm.
or little pharmacy backgrounds, and of course to spend some time with you, I welcome that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Calvin is an author, a novelist, a journalist, a college professor, a podcaster. His latest book is There's a Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit. And we will be speaking about his book today. And given all the work that he's done, understandably, Calvin's been awarded and felicitated several times. So, Calvin, before we come to your book, a few questions for you. You have moved through several professional identities. What were some of the key turning points that prompted each shift?
Okay, well, I was a pharmacist.
Yeah.
I was a pharmacist because I had a wonderful overbearing mother who
Hmm.
insisted I become a pharmacist. But the studies, the chemistry and the math and the physics and all that stuff was not inside me. I didn't like it. So I had to push myself through pharmacy school.
Mm.
And I didn't know what was inside me.
Mm.
I didn't know that this something that wanted to come out.
Mm.
So I did pharmacy for 12 years, and there is a huge spiritual component to me. So one morning after 12 years of being a pharmacist, I awoke, I opened up my eyes, and I yelled to my wife, who was in the next room. I yelled, "Hey, I'm quitting my profession
Hmm.
today because something compelled me to do it." So, I'd done it all. I had my own pharmacy. I worked for chains. I wrote for the school paper. I just, you know what, Ash? I just couldn't do it anymore. So
Mm.
that was that piece of energy. So I resigned
Mm.
and I quit pharmacy and I sat home for 6 months trying to find myself.
Hmm.
And eventually, of all things, landed a job selling eyeglasses.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you look back, what belief about yourself most limited your growth early on and what replaced it later?
Well, it's a great question because my entire early life, a big portion of my early life, I was filled with the belief that I wasn't particularly smart. I wasn't popular. I didn't excel in anything. I didn't think I was a good basketball player. I'm 6'5". I really was a good basketball player, but
Hmm.
there was no support system for me. My mom and dad were busy working, being parents to I had two sisters. So I just didn't think I amounted to much.
Mm.
So there was zero self-confidence in me. And it's funny,
Mm.
the basketball thing. I was a really good basketball player, and I
Mhm.
might have been able. I had a couple college scholarships, and one day, not that many years ago, I met a hero of mine. His name was Chris. He was an All-American. He
Mhm.
was an All-American, both in high school and in college, and played some pro ball. And we were at a library function, and I met him, and we started to talk. He remembered me. He was 3 years older than me. He played in the same high school that I did. And he came over to me and said, "Hey, Calvin, how come you never played for our high
Mm.
school? You were the best basketball player I ever saw." And this was a few years ago. And I said, "You're telling me this now? Why didn't you tell me this, 50, 60 years ago? It might
Mm.
have helped me be a
Yeah.
better." That's just it. There was no self-confidence and
Mm.
awareness in me.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Kelvin, you worked as a journalist, as a TV program host, and a podcaster. What is the most important difference between telling a story and reporting a story?
Well, as a journalist, you're taught who, what, where, when, and why, uh, um, and what's important is you're gathering facts. These are facts. You kind of who, what, where, when, and why. So you're reporting items, things. But when you're telling a story, and when you're in a different position to tell a story, you're living it and you're emotional. And so it's I think it's more of a challenge for us in what we're doing to tell a story than it is just to compile,
Hmm.
cold facts, who, what, where, when, and why. But living it and being descriptive and being emotional and drawing a person in, it's more. I think it's more of a challenge. I think it's more important. Facts are facts,
Yep.
but to live it and experience it and share it as a storyteller, I think is a gift.
Hmm. Well said. In your 25 years at Luxottica, what leadership lesson did you learn the hard way? And how did it change how you led people?
That's a very. I use the word propitious. It's a very great question because when I started with Luxottica in 1983,
Hmm.
it was a growing company, and the leader of Luxottica, Leonardo Del Vecchio, went on to actually become the richest Italian in the world. And Luxottica Group has now become this gigantic global entity.
Hmm.
And the leadership that he had insisted on us. And eventually, my first year there, I was number one in the country. So I didn't know I could talk, but I guess I could talk. And I was number one in the country.
Hmm.
And he and I became a regional manager, so I interacted closely
Hmm.
with Luxottica and the management team, and all under the auspices of Mr. Del Vecchio, a
Hmm.
brilliant, brilliant, visionary leader. And his company that he started is all over the world. They're
Hmm.
global. And I learned there were two major things that I learned
Hmm.
from him. Well, I learned a lot of things from him. First is do it right, do it now. And this became part of my mantra.
Hmm.
And to this day, for all of us, it's
Yeah.
it's a great mantra. Do it right, do it now.
Hmm.
Think about it, study the thing, but just make sure you do it quickly and you do
Hmm.
it right. And
Correct.
and that was powerful. And then also one of the great things there, they taught me how to talk to people and when I
Hmm.
meet people. And what I learned, and this is so important, what I learned, life is a sale. Because everything you do, and I was a salesman, and I'm a sales manager, but everything you do in life,
Hmm.
if you think about it, it's a sale. You're with
Correct.
four friends, and there are four types. I call them types. There are four types of people, buyers. Well,
Hmm.
people are buyers, and once you learn the characteristics of each type, then you know the right kind of wording to use. Ultimately, quote, make that sale or decide where you want to go out for dinner. And actually, this is new. When you and I were early communicating, this
Yeah.
is really new. But this got published 10 Things I Learned from the Billionaire
Hmm.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This got published.
Oh,
And it's a
congratulations.
business
Yeah.
fable.
Hmm.
It's a business fable, but it compiles what I learned. So my 25 years there were magical. That completely changed me into what I then became,
Hmm.
what I am now.
Yeah.
It's the things I learned from this amazing company and this
Hmm.
amazing man and
Hmm.
amazing management team.
Amazing. You co-founded Climate Optimists. How do you keep environmental work constructive rather than despairing?
Interesting question. I've been, quote, an environmentalist since April 22nd, 1970. I
Hmm.
went to the first Earth Day. And from that moment on, I realized that things are not infinite; they're finite, and we had a better So I made a major life change in me because of my awareness and consciousness for climate and climate change and the things that were happening. In 1975, I stopped eating everything with four legs. So I haven't consumed. I'm not perfect. There's
Hmm.
chicken, turkey, fish, and I'm not perfect. But I haven't consumed anything with four legs
Hmm.
since 1975. That
Okay.
was my commitment, and it's wonderful for me because the blood flow to my brain is unimpeded. There's no
Hmm.
plaque,
Hmm.
and this allows this 80-year-old brain to think and perform and write books.
Correct.
So I believe there was a tie into that. But what I've learned about the whole environmental thing, it's like in two parts. Yes, it's despair, and it's despair if you're looking at the big picture,
Hmm.
because it's overwhelming. But when you take that despair and you look closer to
Hmm.
solve problems that are closer to you,
Yeah.
personal,
Hmm.
things that are immediate, then you get more uplifting. Despair is big. You're looking, at glaciers melting. These are huge, huge issues. But if you take that, and that's what we did in Climate Optimists. If you take that, that's there, and you got to think about that. But you got to solve problems closer to home
Hmm.
and to begin to work on things closer to home. So it allows you to be a little bit more
Correct.
positive, a little bit more energetic. You can't. You have to think about the glaciers melting in Antarctica and
Hmm.
permafrost
Hmm.
melting and all that. But work closer to home because if there's this great groundswell movement of people working closer to home, maybe we get maybe we get things solved
Well
better.
said. Absolutely. Absolutely. You've served on advisory and steering committees across health and One Health. What is one blind spot you see in how society connects human, animal, and planetary well being?
I worked on that for a few years, and it was like a little gentle slap in the face for me because we are all interconnected.
Correct.
What goes on with animals and plants,
Mm,
and it's common sense. We're all interconnected, and it taught me that.
mm,
Uh, uh, and part of our way of living, we do things and we make changes when there's an election. There's an election. There's new officials presuming and presiding. But biological cycles,
mm,
they're there forever and ever. They don't
mm,
change.
mm,
So it's powerful stuff, and it allow. But seeing and sitting in on all this, we start to take a lot of this stuff to grassroots, and we can do and attack the things that we can
mm.
change,
Well said.
and
Well said.
and that's so important.
Correct.
What we can change. Bobby Kennedy said something
Mm,
about to deal with what you can change and what you can't, to accept, to learn. Uh, uh, so in that whole movement, we
mm,
begin to focus on things that we can change.
mm. Amazing. Kelvin, let's now come to your book, There's a Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit. And I'm going to ask all my viewers and listeners to go and check out Mr. Calvin Schwartz's book. There's a tortoise in my hair. There's the book, A Journey to Spirit. So, my first question is, what does the tortoise represent to you? And why was this the right metaphor for your story?
Well, a tortoise, there's a lot. As I said earlier, I knew things about myself, even growing up, that I'm slow.
Hmm.
And this is a novel, but it's very hard sometimes for some kind of writers to uh, uh, it's easier for me as not I'm not trained as a writer.
Hmm.
I was never trained as a writer. I studied science and pharmacy and stuff,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it's just easy for me to write. about things you know. And what do I know best? Well, I know me.
Hmm.
By the way, I'm really proud to say that this book got the Kirkus Star, which is a very prestigious award.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew. I never knew, but there it was. It's a very prestigious award, and I've
Interesting.
gotten five other awards since that. The last one was a couple of weeks ago. I was gold medal in the Global Book Awards. I was also runner-up in the New York Book Festival.
Wow.
So, so back to the tortoise. I knew about myself that I was just so slow. You know, I was in sixth grade before I could tie my shoes.
Hmm.
So at some point, somebody must have said something like maybe my father, you know, he's so slow, he can't do this, he can't do that. I'm slow to talk,
Hmm.
and there must be a tortoise in his hair. And that kind of stuck with me as I'm writing. So a
Hmm.
tortoise represents a lot of things. It's slow, but if you also think a tortoise is endurance.
Hmm.
The tortoise is endurance. It
Correct.
endures. It may be slow, but it probably will win the race because the
Hmm.
hare is sleeping
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's endurance, and the tortoise kind of lives within its shell. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of metaphors in here. You know, the tortoise
Sure.
is going to finish that finish
Sure.
line, and maybe it won't finish first.
Hmm.
Maybe it will,
Hmm.
but it's reliable, but it's also slow. So
Hmm.
I had to accept things about myself and my character that he's imbued with a lot of slowness,
Hmm.
steadiness, and slowness. But it was a powerful metaphor, and it just
Hmm.
kind of came to me as I started writing. And boom,
Absolutely.
there it was.
Amazing. Your book also blends dark humor with very heavy material. How do you calibrate the tone without undercutting the seriousness?
There's a balance. You know, there's a lot of darkness and there's also dark humor.
Hmm.
The humor element is to show people that this is real because in all parts of life, no matter how dark a situation might be, there might be
Hmm.
some humor. So I was trying to find a balance between darkness and being upbeat
Yeah.
because there's some really heavy things about this,
Hmm.
and you know I used humor because humor's part of life. It's
Hmm.
reality, and I think it helps tell a story better.
Correct.
It doesn't replace the seriousness of some issues, but it points out uh, the reality the reality of the character that
Hmm.
he's a real person. He's dealing with some heavy situations in life, but there's some elements of humor,
Hmm.
and that is to me it's better storytelling to
Hmm.
balance those two different things.
Correct.
And actually, deep inside, I'm confessing something to you, Ash. And deep inside, I think if I could ever become, if I came around for another run, I probably would have liked to have become a comedian.
Hmm.
I don't share this very often. I love comedians. I marvel at them, their bravery, because it seems every comedian that ever rises to the top has had a million different issues
Correct.
uh, of growth, survival, pain, and it's a way to deal with the pain of a life
Hmm.
is to make people laugh. So
Hmm.
that component has always been inside me. I would have
Yeah.
loved, except I just don't have the guts to get up on stage and try to make. I did it once.
Hmm.
I actually got up on stage in front of 500 people at a national sales meeting for Luxottica. 500 people, and I tried to tell a joke, and
Hmm.
it was awful. And they told me to get off the stage.
Hmm.
And so that was the end, the beginning and
Amazing.
the end of my formal comedian career.
Fascinating. Fascinating. You also talk of repeating numbers like 111 and 444 throughout your book. What did you want those moments to do for the reader emotionally?
Um, well, if we had about 3 hours, which we don't,
Okay. Yeah.
I would explain. You know, it's funny. I never asked for these numbers. They arrived in my life and they've changed my life
Mm-hmm.
irrevocably. And it's real, and I've investigated it, and these numbers exist in certain religious teachings.
Mm-hmm.
They're real, they're powerful, they're inexplicable, and I've been on this journey the last 10, 15 years trying to understand.
Mm.
You know, I've done clairvoyance and seances, and I'm just trying to understand the gifts that I was in real life
Mm.
and my character with these numbers. What would I? The numbers are real in my life. They've changed it. I could tell stories that are haunting and that are beyond scientific explanation or beyond probability. These are wonderful things that have landed. What
Mm.
I've learned that we're like antennas. People are antennas, and we all of us have
Mm.
abilities to receive and to reach out. Uh, um, but to answer your question, you know, I use those numbers, and it became part of this story. I use it to kind of tell folks, and this is one of the main messages of my book, that there's
Mm.
something out there.
Mm.
You know, there's something out there, and you can call it whatever you want, and we all call it different things. There's something wonderful and amazing and real out there.
Mm.
And if we take that antenna that we have and we kind of unfurl it and raise it higher, we and the more you receive, the more you get.
Mm.
And I mean, I've learned these
Sure.
things, but
Sure.
I've sent stories about 111 and 444, you
Mm.
know, into Chicken Soup for the Soul, this multi-million Jack Canfield, yeah, because it's so powerful. I
Mm.
mean, my goodness. And I've asked, you know, people in science, where does this stuff come from? What's the
Mm.
probability? And some of these things are, but I use these to let my readers know I believe there's something beyond. And it's a good, by the way, it's a wonderful feeling for
Mm.
me to
Yeah.
live with this. It's a wonderful feeling because we're not alone, you know. I'm not alone. There's things out there. The
Mm.
good positive forces. Um,
Yeah. Then I've got time for one more question for you.
sure.
Um, what do you think people misunderstand the most about spiritual awakening, especially when it coexists with mental health struggle?
Well, this ties into what I just talked about. What I really believe is for me to know you're not the most important element is for me to convey that my character and me to convey we are not alone
Hmm.
out there. It's
Hmm.
powerful stuff.
Yeah.
You're going through mental health issues, to latch on to a force, to a spirit, to something, to know you're not
Hmm.
alone
Hmm.
is really powerful. And all the examples and the stories I tell
Yeah.
in my novel is to highlight the fact that it's just me and my experience. And you know, the thing about me that I always try to convey is I'm a regular guy. I'm wearing a Rutgers hat. I go to American football. I go to basketball games. I eat tuna fish submarine sandwiches. Uh, um, I'm a regular guy, but I've been gifted, and I found that we are not
Hmm.
alone
Hmm.
here.
Yeah.
And I've experienced lots of different religious type things. I want to learn, I want to feel, I want to grow,
Hmm.
I want to share, I want to give back. You know, these are all wonderful things, but
Hmm.
it's all under the umbrella, Ash, of
Absolutely.
we are not alone.
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
and
Correct.
it's powerful. And, you know,
Absolutely.
I am going to read your book. I wrote it down, the seven chakras of management, because
Yeah.
I want to learn and I need to expand this thing up here. Uh,
Wonderful.
um, yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you. But on that note, Calvin, I just want to say What a fascinating conversation this has been with you.
Thank
You know, talking to me about your own journey, talking to me about so many facets of the great work you've done as an author, as a journalist, as a podcaster. Thank you also for speaking to me about your book. There's a tortoise in my hair, a journey to spirit, and I love the story on why the word tortoise came to represent something that you value so much. Thank you also for sharing with me your deep desire to learn more and more about scriptures. Good luck to you. Thank you for speaking
Well,
to
thank
me.
you. Thank you so much. You made my day. My
Thank you.
day's just beginning. I know yours is ending.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Ash. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.